This episode of the podcast is brought to you by New Bloom Labs.
Delta 8 THC is all the hype within the hemp market. But what most consumers don't know is that many Delta 8 products have a significant amount of Delta 9 in them as well. This is because most cannabis testing labs have a hard time accurately analyzing Delta 8, but not New Bloom Labs. New Bloom Labs delivers clear, precise chromatography of all Delta 8 products. They're also leading the industry with potency testing of Delta 9, 2 isomers of Delta 10, and a dozen other major and minor cannabinoids that are shaping the industry. So if you've ever questioned your lab's potency reports of Delta 8 products or any other cannabis products for that matter, you need to call New Bloom Labs at 844-TEST-CBD or visit their website at newbloomlabs.com. New Bloom Labs will deliver the most precise Delta 8 analysis in the country and show you the raw chromatography to back it up. So for superior science and rapid results, you need to go with New Bloom Labs. Hello, my fellow people of the plant. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Cannabinoid Connect podcast, your favorite podcast that includes industry-facing conversations with the industry's leading experts that aim to educate and inform the public regarding the plant's endless benefits. My guest today is Recker. He's the Senior Vice President of Sales and Operations at Indicaloud. Eric, what's up, man? Thanks for coming on today.
Hey, Kevin, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, yes. And from what I heard before we started recording, you're in the middle of a move, right? You just moved to Cincinnati?
I am, yeah. My wife and I and our kids, we're originally from Cincinnati, Ohio, and just relocated back from Chicago. So we're kind of in the mess of it right now. We're in a temporary place. We're living out of boxes, but hopefully we'll be stable here very soon.
That's good to hear. And you're part of that data set, Eric. So, there's talking about the trend of, more people are moving back to where they grew up. You know what I mean? So was it just kind of pandemic, want to be closer to home type thing? Or was it the job? What kind of made you want to move back?
Yeah, very interesting question because that's a big trend right now, especially in the Midwest. So my wife and I are originally from Cincinnati, Ohio, and we've actually relocated twice to Chicago. So I've spent upwards of 8 years in and around the Chicagoland area. And a lot of it was pandemic focused. My wife is in the medical field, and I'm not sure how much you know about the Chicagoland area, right. But regardless of where you live, it takes you an hour to get to work, even if you're 5 miles down the road. So my wife was kind of getting irritated with the commute in the pandemic. I mean, Illinois, for very good reason, shut down. So we weren't able to get out. We weren't able to do much. And we felt this kind of sense of claustrophobia a little bit. And my wife and I just did a lot of thinking. I was working remote at that point in time. So it made sense. It was a very fast move, but we're very happy to be back in Cincinnati and continue that trend of being in the Midwest.
That's good, man. Yeah, and especially if you have young kids, I mean, just to be closer to home and have that support knit group with your family, that's good to hear. So good luck on the move. I know that it's a pain in the ass to do that, but once you're settled and whatnot, it'll be a good thing. So, and speaking of data, right? So from what I gather, you're, but prior to entering the cannabis space, you were in the data and analytics world, but specifically focused like on sports performance. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah. And very similar to kind of your start, I started out in IT consulting. So a lot of my background has been on the business side of consulting, data analytics, the transition going from the traditional IT consulting firms into the sports analytics space was pretty easy. So yeah, I have around 10 plus years of experience in that analytics space, and my most recent 3-4 years were spent in sports data analytics, specifically performance tracking for collegiate, high school, and youth athletes.
Wow, that's awesome. I was an athlete myself growing up, and just to see kind of how things have evolved since, when I was in high school, in 2007, it's like the data when it comes to records and, most pins and wins. I was in wrestling, right? So you've got that. And
Okay.
then you've got, all these different platforms where they're broadcasting these matches all throughout different states. And I mean, the game has just changed, when it comes to data analytics and then just media exposure overall.
Yeah, 100%. I think in all industries, really, right?
Of course.
There's just been this huge data push, and within sports specifically, um, analytics were always used. It just, you weren't necessarily aware of how much you were using those analytics. And, over the course of the past 10 years, everything has evolved. Every single from the high school athlete all the way through the professional athlete, your days are monitored. What you're eating, what you're taking from a performance standpoint, your weightlifting, strength and conditioning, all the way to the field, which is what we did by tracking athletes out on the field of play.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and it relates to the cannabis industry, right? Because when you think about, whether it be health and wellness or recovery when it comes to athletics, it seems like more sports athletes and even leagues are looking to cannabis to help with those different ailments.
100%. From all hemp derived products, really. I mean, we got our start in the CBD space. We started out as a CBD distribution company, and a big reason that I came on board with the company, a good friend of mine and business partner now, started in the CBD distribution space. But when I was in sport, much like you alluded to in the cannabis industry, CBD was starting to make some strides, but it was still this alternative relief or medicine that still had kind of a bad stigma, which just it really didn't sit all that well with me, because there are so many benefits, right, from a CBD perspective, a Delta 9 THC cannabis perspective, and then also down to now Delta 8 THC.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been really interesting to see kind of in that professional sports space how leagues are starting to loosen up regulation and restrictions on it. But it's only natural, I mean, the benefits that cannabis adds is just extraordinary.
Yeah. And so is that your kind of entrance into cannabis? Like, were you a consumer or an advocate prior, or did you kind of, maybe use CBD and kind of see the efficacy firsthand? Like, how did it all start?
Yeah, I did actually. So I've played golf all of my life. I've been an athlete all of
Nice.
my life, but I've realized I'm 38 years old now, and over the course of the past 5 years, I've started to get the lower back pain. As a lot of people do. I'm probably not in as good of shape as I should be, so that lower back pain hits me pretty hard. But I did. I started using CBD as kind of an alternative to the typical, ibuprofen or Tylenol. And the instant effects were unbelievable. When I was actually out on the links playing, I didn't feel that pain anymore, and I used to have to take, 3 ibuprofen every 6 hours, especially if I was going to be playing golf, in order to relieve that pain. And CBD just helped me out amazingly.
That's amazing, man. And you're not the only one who says that, like, kind of overnight effect, like you immediately saw results, right? And it's not as detrimental to your body, like say ibuprofen that kind of damages your liver, you know?
Exactly.
And so that's awesome. Okay, so you kind of see relief in CBD. You join that company of I think you said your friend or your former colleague.
Yes.
Um, and then so when did you found Indicaloud?
Yeah. So during kind of the start of us being in the CBD industry, we're going in, we're talking to customers, and we were very grassroots, right? I mean, we started a distribution company that was, our sole purpose was to improve customer service within that whole wholesale distribution realm. Because as you probably realized, a lot of wholesale distributors, there's not a lot of client interaction. There's not a lot of customer service interaction. It's very much drop ship everything, all products to a customer site. And we wanted to change that a little bit by offering on-hand delivery. So all of our sales reps are also delivering our products, and we have warehouses set up throughout the Midwest, now on the West Coast, and in Tennessee and Indiana. So we're really expanding on that operation. But we just started talking to customers. Hey, what are you seeing in the industry? What kind of products are out there? What are you guys interested in? And we started hearing more and more about Delta 8 THC. Our founder, he researches his butt off. I mean, it's amazing to see how much time and effort he puts into any sort of business venture that he wants to attack. And we just painstakingly started doing a lot of research, started looking at different labs, different locally owned hemp farms, production facilities to figure out how we could enter the market. But much like our CBD business, where we focus on premium products, we also wanted to build out a premium brand. We didn't just want to come to market fast with a product that we couldn't necessarily stand behind. So we did a lot of research, spent a lot of time and effort making sure that when we did launch our products, that they were at a premium brand, more or less.
When y'all were doing your due diligence and really doing that research, and you found that Delta 8 was all the hype, like were those in states where it's non-adult use, right? Because of course, due to the 2018 Farm Bill throughout the nation, it's legal to grow hemp, right? Which is the plant that Delta 8 THC is derived from.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we started, our leadership team is in the Midwest, right? Indicaloud is based out of Wisconsin, but we have a heavy presence in Illinois and throughout the Midwest. So we really, wanted to get that start. We didn't know what to expect, right? We didn't know how fast, how quickly our brand in this industry was going to evolve. And over the course of the past 6 months, it's been crazy. There are a lot of companies that have come out with products, but there's been a lot of education as well, and a lot of consumers know about the product. So we were starting out relatively small in the Midwest, and we were really focused on, trying to find local labs, local hemp farms, local production facilities to kind of help us get launched. But that has expanded so much. I mean, we source now certain products. We work with companies out of Colorado, out of the West Coast, Tennessee, Illinois, Wisconsin. So we've really expanded on that.
That's great. Yeah. And Delta 8 is just fascinating to me because, it shows the appetite for consumers who want the psychoactive properties of cannabis, right? Which is what you get from Delta 9 or THC, right? Delta 8 is a conversion of CBD. Isn't that correct?
It is, yeah. So Delta 8 is in the cannabis plant. It's derived in very small particles, more or less. So it is lab extracted into heavier doses, which you can extract into distillate, isolate, and make products such as vape cartridges, disposable vapes. We have a full concentrate line now. Delta 8 sprayed flower. So the actual flower that we utilize is from a local farm in Illinois, and it's CBG white flower, and then we spray on the Delta 8 distillate. And then we also have a vegan gummy line. We have candies, which we source from a 100-year-old chocolatier based on the West Coast. So there are many different ways to consume this product. It's really interesting to see players that were in the cannabis or the CBD space have kind of altered, production and started helping in the Delta 8 space.
Yeah, they've altered, or they've added that product to their line, right? Because they just see that the consumers are really wanting Delta 8 in states where they can't purchase Delta 9, right? And I've tried Delta 8. I mean, I like the edibles. I like the vape. The flower seemed a bit harsh when I smoked it. When you mentioned the spraying on of is it the isolate? Is that what's sprayed on? Or
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So that to me was a bit harsh on the throat, but maybe I just have a weak throat. I don't know. um, but I just find it interesting, and I wonder about like where does Delta 8 pan out in the future? And what I mean by that is, of course, all the cannabinoids have their purpose, right? Because in my experience, because Delta 8 is an isolate, it doesn't have the secondary compounds and the added terpenes and flavonoids that you'd get in Delta 9. So it's not as maybe extreme or euphoric in your high. It's just kind of a more balanced, I'm high, right? And I understand that some people like that as opposed to the Delta 9. Have you heard of Delta 10?
I have. Yes. Yes.
And
So,
I'm like not familiar with that. So what are they saying is the anecdotal evidence for the effects of Delta 10?
yeah, I'm not as well versed in Delta 10 as I am in Delta 8, so I don't know if I would do you much justice in explaining the intricacies and the differences. But there is research being done currently, and we're still kind of like in the elementary phases, and we are, obviously researching other hemp-derived products from the cannabis plant. As everything evolves, right? There are other psychoactive hemp derivatives that can serve a purpose, and there's a lot of research being done. I'm just not as well versed yet in the Delta 10 space.
Same here. Yeah. I need to read up on it. I do know a little bit about THCV, which is pretty fascinating. It's a it's a compound it's a cannabinoid that basically serves anecdotally again as an appetite suppressant. So
Mm-hmm.
opposite of like having the munchies and whatnot, so that's kind of fascinating. But again, like you said, all these different cannabinoids serve a purpose. And with Delta 8, like you also, I would imagine, so here's a pivot in our conversation. So like I've talked to lawyers and litigators, and they're constantly talking about, just different lawsuits that are coming about Delta 8. And I'm thinking to myself, it doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense for people to combat Delta 8 legally when it costs resources, time, money, right? When we're talking about, eventual federal legalization. So
Mm-hmm.
do you see like it being difficult? Like, of course it's difficult to operate as a cannabis business, but is it even more so difficult in the Delta 8 space right now?
Well, I wouldn't say it's more difficult. There's just a lot of unknowns, right? Well, what's going to happen when federal legalization starts with Delta 9 THC? And it's also going to be state dependent, right? We have under the 2018 Farm Bill, Delta 8 THC is legal in all 50 states. However, each state is able to deem whether or not hemp derived plants are legal. So currently, Delta 8 THC is legal in 39 states, which we expect that I'm sure there are going to be some states that follow with the regulation of Delta 8 THC. But we're hopeful, we're very hopeful that once federal legalization happens for Delta 9 THC, that it also includes Delta 8 THC, because research has been done that there's many added benefits to this great cannabinoid. You have, much like you alluded to, it's kind of like a less harsh high, more or less, with Delta 8 THC. It's more mellow, right? So, everybody reacts differently to cannabinoids. So Delta 8 THC, for like myself, I would prefer Delta 8 THC because of tolerance, and it makes me feel a little bit better than Delta 9 THC. However, everybody reacts differently, and I think both cannabinoids are fantastic.
That's so true. Yeah. And when you say everyone reacts differently, I couldn't agree more. In fact, on my website, I have this banner that's EndoDNA. And what it does is it screens your DNA and maps a summary of your endocannabinoid system to specific cannabinoid ratios and terpene profiles. So if you're, THC sensitive, then you'll kind of see that and know when you go to a dispensary or even a CBD shop how much CBD or THC or whatever the cannabinoid is that you should be consuming. So it's so important to know that, is my point. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. And so getting back to Delta 8, I agree. It has that more mellow effect, right? And so like once federal legalization happens, whenever that is, I think is going to be a great option for people that maybe want that more mellow effect as opposed to the higher potency THC products. And that's what's beautiful about this plant is there's so many different ways you can consume it based off of your own chemistry.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. It's really interesting just seeing the different stories that we hear from different users. We have so many different types of demographics that are utilizing Delta 8 THC. And one really cool story out of Wisconsin, we had a retired couple that reached out to us, and they had said, "Hey, we've gone to a dispensary, and we were educated on the differences between Delta 9 THC, Delta 8 THC, and we've had some pain and anxiety, my wife and I, and also had some issues, just falling asleep. So we wanted to find an alternative to the typical NyQuil or sleeping aids and that sort of thing." So they called us, and we provided them with some of our edible products. And we educated them on, how much dosage they should be taking, and we're very careful on that. Obviously we have our recommended dosage on all of our products, but they were new to it, so we said, "Hey, start a little bit lighter. Don't go for a full 25 milligram edible. That very well could kind of put you over the edge a little bit." And just having those discussions with the baby boomer age, where it was a very highly looked down upon, with my parents and other people within that baby boomer age. And now to start to see a lot of CBD usage, Delta 8 and Delta 9 usage within that whole demographic, when it was so highly looked down upon, it is pretty awesome to see, because they see the added benefits. They don't have to use an opioid. They don't have to use a ibuprofen, that sort of thing. They have alternatives to relieve their pain.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The CBD is basically a stigma remover of cannabis or marijuana, or what people think of just the THC plant. And those boomers, like you said, they're starting to see, oh, I can rub this cream on my shoulder, or, I can smoke this CBD vape and I won't get high, but I'll feel more relaxed and less anxious. Then, there's benefits there. And it's a great conversation starter, for other discussions about the cannabinoids. One point I want to go back on that you touched on was the fact that there's 39 states that currently where it's legal to sell and to consume Delta 8. So that's new news to me, because I didn't realize that. So you're saying there's 11 states that have voted to ban specifically Delta 8 since the hemp bill?
That is correct. Yes. So it is state by state. So one of the interesting states was actually Colorado, which makes sense from a tax perspective, right? Where Delta 9 THC is fully legal. But yeah, there are 11 states that have decided to ban Delta 8 THC.
Wow. And I got to look up like what states those are. Are they primarily in the Midwest, or are they kind of scattered everywhere?
They are scattered, kind of all over the place. There are a couple in the South. Alaska is one, Colorado is one, but they're scattered throughout the U.S.
I'm surprised Texas hasn't jumped on that. Hopefully they don't move that direction. I know they were trying. In fact, this month they were meeting again for the Texas smokable hemp ban. They're trying to ban all smokable hemp products.
Yeah, Indiana has a similar ban, which I believe they're going to be removing here relatively soon. But yeah, all smokable flower, CBD flower, is banned in Indiana, but you can get other CBD products such as the edibles and tinctures and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Crazy.
I can't imagine like if it were to go federally legal and they tried to mandate that. I just can't imagine that would, in my view, that would just kind of further allow the illicit market to thrive because you're going to have those legacy users that are always going to want to smoke flower or their vape or dab or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so it's just interesting. So let's talk about Indicaloud. So like, what are your products? It's all Delta 8? Do you eventually plan to expand into other cannabinoids? Like what's y'all's vision for the future?
Yeah. So it is a Delta 8 line at this point in time, but we do have plans of evolving that in the future. We're very much still involved in the CBD space, the health and wellness space, and very interested in the Delta 9 space as well. One of our business partners is in Illinois, so we're constantly doing research in Illinois of how we can make an entrance into the Delta 9 space. Currently within our Delta 8 product stack, we have one of the widest range of products in the industry, and we've been very intentional with that. We very much want to build a brand that is going to provide all consumers the ability to utilize our product stack. So we started with traditional vape cartridges, as most people do, disposable vapes. We have a line of gummies, both vegan gummies in three different flavors, and then also a nano gummy that comes in a traditional 2-pack. We have concentrates. We have 3 different strains of concentrates, but we did a little bit different of a spin on our concentrates. We wanted to differentiate specifically within the Delta 8 market because a lot of brands were going just for the wax and that sort of thing. So we do a CBD diamond infused with Delta 8 sauce in sour diesel, strawberry cough, blueberry kush. We have 6 different strains and flavors of our vape cartridges, 6 different strains and flavors in our disposables, our Delta 8 infused flower, which we had mentioned before, and pre-rolls. And we're continually evolving that. We're looking at the adult beverage industry, a product that would come in a can form that would be similar to a lot of what you're seeing in the cannabis industry right now with certain brands. But we're ever evolving that, and we're constantly researching, figuring out what new types of products we can bring out. And the hope in that is that Delta 8 doesn't get regulated. It is worst case scenario, we see that when Delta 9 THC becomes federally legal, that Delta 8 is under that as well. Whether it is Delta 8 being sold in dispensaries and that sort of thing. We've been very intentional on our brand, being a premium brand, that if we have to pivot and we have to move in that direction, that dispensaries and other cannabis companies are going to look at us as an appealing brand. Because we do see, obviously the benefit in Delta 8, and want to make sure that we can still be a player in the space once regulations do happen.
Yeah. I mean, brand reputation is everything, right? And the more that y'all are just building up your brand presence and really getting, people to understand the quality of the product that you carry in your line, whether it be Delta 8 or what have you, that's gonna go far. So I don't see that being an issue for y'all to pivot at all if need be. And you mentioned the cannabis beverage space. That is just a booming space. There's no doubt about it. You've seen Canopy Growth roll out their line of, I think, their waters. And then there's just been others, so I that would be cool to kind of see the first. I've never seen a Delta 8 infused beverage, so you guys could be the first.
Yeah, I think there are a couple out there now, but with what our plans are, we're really close to getting that launched. It's going to be a little bit different of a take, so it's going to be unique to the space, and even unique to like the traditional cannabis space. So we're hoping that it's appealing enough to where we can make that pivot, much like I mentioned before. We're doing some really cool things, and it's going to be exciting to see, over the next couple of months once we do bring those products to market.
Well, love to be one of the first taste testers, and I'll give my my feedback on the podcast if you want to send me some.
Oh, we'll certainly send you some down. I'll get you some Indicaloud products as well, what we currently have. So yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, Eric. Well, hey, tell me before we wrap up, is there anything that is top of mind for you that you want to leave the audience with before we hang up?
Yeah, and first and foremost, I really do appreciate the time. Thanks for having me on. It's been great talking to you and getting to know you. I think the one thing is just if you are a consumer of Delta 9 or Delta 8, and you want to check out our brand, go to Indicaloud.com. It's Indicaloud.com. Check out our product stack. Reach out to us if you have any questions. And we're always looking at getting into new markets as well. So if there are any, wholesale distributors or anybody else for that matter, store owners that are interested in carrying our brand that are listening to this podcast, by all means, reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you.
Awesome. And where can people find y'all's website and social media if they want to follow up, learn more?
Yeah, so on Instagram, they can go to Indicaloud.official. And then also Indicaloud.com is our website. So we have all social platforms from Instagram to Facebook to TikTok. So you can pretty much find us anywhere.
Awesome. Eric, well, thank you so much again for your time. Really enjoyed talking to you about the booming Delta 8 market, and really interested and looking forward to talking to you again as the industry evolves.
Kevin, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it, and I'll get you some samples.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eric, and thank you all for listening. Bye.
Thank you.